Hello and welcome to Healing Heart to Heart. I'd like to introduce you to Cammie Leplatt. She's the transition coordinator of Aztec High School. She holds a master's in counseling and is also a life coach. Cammie, will you please begin by describing your office space and the den? And while you are talking, I'm going to take the camera and show people what that space looks like.
The den was the space that was created by the two classrooms when the shooting happened on December 7th. They removed all the walls and put in furniture and painted and put up student photos and glass chalkboards so that they could write encouraging positive messages to each other and draw encouraging pictures. The chalkboards are really neat in that every 2 weeks they get erased and they get to start over on new pictures and new messages to each other, and that's been a really helpful, healing thing to see the different quotes and pictures that they put up to encourage each other.
How have you noticed that students are using the space, and what are your thoughts about how it helps them to feel safe again, and your thoughts about safety and the word you introduced me to, which is safing?
Well, let's see. First, when they built the den, they realized they needed a monitor up here because of the trauma that the kids were still experiencing with the anxiety, and so I volunteered to come up here and be that person to be here for the kids, to help them establish a new normal. The kids use it as a study hall or as a place to come up and hang out and play games after lunch. I think it's been a good place for kids to come and heal and rethink how things can be different, to have a new normal. For me, after the shooting, I had to reevaluate what the word safety meant. So for me, I looked it up everywhere that it said in the Bible talking about safety, to try to figure out if God was really true to his word. Does he really keep us safe? And I realized that every word for safety in the Bible, in the Hebrew and in the Greek, was actually a verb. That meant safe. So I had to rethink my whole concept of safe to say, am I safed? Am I safing? Am I being, is someone safing me? And that was revolutionary for me, because I realized that I think safety is an illusion. We don't have that control of safety to be able to keep ourselves safe all the time. But when we look at it in terms of a verb of being saved or being safety, that I do have that for me in where God, he's the only one in control of what safe is, and that with an immortal soul, that if you know where your soul is going, then it's always safe, and the circumstances that happen on earth aren't as what's important as the eternal circumstances that are happening. So in that terms, that I'm constantly being saved, and it's interesting that there's an old saying that says that those who mourn are lifted to safety, but it literally would translate those who mourn are being saved, and that mourning and grieving goes with how we recreate this safe feeling, and that when we can do that in a positive way, it increases that safety and creates that new normal for us.
Along those lines, you had mentioned that, of course, this is a defining moment for the students, the staff, and the community, and that it doesn't have to be a negative definer. It can be a positive one. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, I think that there's no way to take out of each of our lives that the fact that this happened and to pretend like it didn't would be ridiculous. But that because it's a defining moment, it can define us as a moment of where we learned what hope in the face of adversity is, or what courage in the face of adversity is, or how to overcome adversity. And those are all things that are incredible life lessons that bring incredible growth. And so I want it to be a defining moment for my peers, my colleagues, for the students, that they can look back and say, that was the moment where I changed, and I really grew through adverse circumstances, and I really grew up, and I learned what it is to walk in hope and courage, and have it be a defining positive moment of their life in a negative circumstance, not that it negatively defines them for the rest of their life. That's my goal, is to help each person that comes in here and talks to see it as a positive defining moment.
And you had spoken a little bit about the saying Aztec strong, and that strong does not mean grinning and bearing it or pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. And you had told me some stories and examples of incredible strength and courage and love and compassion that you have seen your students in their actions. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's there would always be those students that come by that just want to pretend like it didn't happen, stuff it down, not talk about it, pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And so it's kind of funny because I'll tell them, hey, why don't you sit on the floor, take a hold of your bootstraps, and try to pull yourself up by them, which it never happens, because the first thing that happens is your feet come off the floor, so it's impossible to stand up. So I think what we've learned through this is that we can't do it alone, that we have to do it with other people within the community, and that we have to help each other through that. And so in talking to some of the students, I've seen amazing things happen like that. I had one student who, and of course after you go through a horrific event like this, whenever there's a death in the family or a funeral, it just brings back all the things that maybe have not been dealt with yet. So I had a student whose uncle had just passed away this last week, and it brought back all the things that she was still dealing with from the shooting and everything. And she was saying that people were telling her she needs to just be strong. And for her, that meant, she was thinking that meant not cry, not show emotion, not grieve, not talk about it. But she learned that she actually has incredible strength and courage, and in being strong in how she can talk about it with others, and in how she can grieve and think back through the positive memories. And she is practicing singing a song that she's going to do at her uncle's funeral, and she's creating a playlist of other songs, and she's creating a PowerPoint of pictures, and she's actually going to walk next to her uncle's casket and with the rest of the fire department, and think through how she could best honor him and from all the things that he's done for her. And I told her that right there is courage. Like, that takes amazing courage for a young girl to walk next to the casket and to get up in front of everybody and sing a song that meant so much to her, with helping her deal with her uncle's passing, and to create the whole PowerPoint and look through all those pictures and let those awesome memories just wash over her. Like, that is incredible courage. Like, it doesn't take a lot of courage to stuff it down and pretend like it's not there. It takes a lot of courage to deal with that and find a positive way to manifest that to everybody, like through her singing. It's just awesome. Then I had another student come in. He was really good friends with Casey's family, and was going through the grief process and trying to figure out, how should I handle this? And he was telling me a story how he went to the young man who was the shooter to speak with his father, and to offer his condolences to his father, because he had such a respect for life, and he understood the value of life, and he was grieving the loss of life, all the life, not just Casey and Paco's, but the shooters also, and went to the dad and said, I just want you to know I'm praying for you. That's got to be so hard for you to handle, because where I can grieve openly, you can't. Where I can get on Facebook and people send me tons of supportive messages, people send you death threats. where I have tons of people supporting me and we have an open funeral and can talk about this openly, you can't. And he said, I just want to tell you I'm sorry, and that's not right. And I forgive your son for everything, and I don't hold you responsible for his actions. And I just thought, wow, what courage, what strength in the midst of adversity for him to be able to offer condolences rather than hate to the family of the person that took his best friend's life. That's what that strength looks like. That's what Aztec Strong is. That's what that courage is.
And how has social media helped in the healing and support and allowed students to express their hope?
Oh, we've had several students that when the Kentucky shooting happened, we wrote cards to express our condolences and share with them things that we've gone through that have helped. And a lot of students ended up putting their Snapchat or Twitter on there, and then students from there snapped them back or tweeted back. And they created these conversations back and forth to say, oh, I know what you're going through, and here's what helped me, and how can I pray for you, or what can we do to offer help? And so having that openness and that conversation with somebody else that's gone through something what you've been through, that understands on a deeper level, even though they're not in the same state, has helped both sides heal. And so then when Florida happened, they did the same thing. They sent cards again, sent their Snapchat, their Twitter, and have been talking back and forth. So I actually have a sticker up in my top of my window that is the MC Strong from the Kentucky shooting, just like our Aztec Strong. And so now they're exchanging stickers back and forth, and the little ribbons and stuff, and just to know that they have that identity and that somebody else has gone through what they're going through and can help them, I think helps both sides. One, because our students are talking about it and seeking a way to promote positive change and help somebody else by what they've gone through. And then for the people like in Kentucky and Florida that are going through it, have somebody else to say, okay, when you got to 2 months out and you're still grieving in this way, how do you deal with that? And they can keep those conversations going of constant help and support.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those stories. Thank you for sharing from your heart. And thank you for sharing your message of healing.